Hello again, and welcome to our next devotional. This one is for Friday. It's called Shoes for Escape, and this is based on Exodus 12, verses 11 through 13. This is how you shall eat: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human beings and animals. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Have you ever seen any of the collection of items that have been confiscated by Border Patrol? It's an interesting thing that Jill brings up, Jill Duffield, who wrote our devotional book. There's even some photographic exhibits based on this. Things like water bottles, New Testaments, rosaries, children's drawings, stuffed toys, extra clothing, shoelaces, shoes, belts, handwritten notes, toothpaste, baby food jars, all sorts of things that Border Patrol have taken from people when they've tried to cross the border. People who are fleeing from horrific circumstances, they take very little with them. They have to take items for survival. You have to think carefully about where you're going, about the terrain. But they also want something to cling to, something that connects them to who they really are. Shoes, a staff, a meal eaten quickly. Those were the instructions God gave to the Israelites to take the bare necessities for making a long, dangerous journey of migration to the Promised Land. No doubt they too looked around, tucked in their pockets and their satchels, some symbols of home, some reminders of God's presence and hope in God's future. And when you think about it, when you have to flee in a hurry, you have to pack, you have to grab whatever you can and run. What do you take? What do you take with you? And the questions at the end here, I'm going to ask them now because I want to talk a little bit about them. Have you ever had to leave home quickly? If so, what did you take? If you had to flee, what would you take? So think about that for a minute. We've all played that game in our head. What do you grab? The house is on fire, or the wildfire's coming, or whatever it is, and you only have a couple of minutes. What do you grab? Well, most people would grab, wallets, ID. What else do you take? Medication. You want shoes. Do you have time to grab another set of clothes? Do you have time to grab photographs? Do you have time to what do you grab? What do you take? That's a really important question. What is it? What's the most important thing to you that you have to have with you? What do you do? I know some families even do like mock fire drills and mock emergency drills, and everybody has a thing they're supposed to grab. But what do you grab? What's the first thing you think of that you would take? In my case, I've got like all of our passports and stuff in one spot. So grab those because you're going to need ID. If you've got your passports, then at least, you've got something. Grab my purse, make sure I got the kids and the dogs, and what do you take? What's important? I'd probably shove my medication in my purse, just, throw it in there, but what do you take? Or if you're going to have to make a long journey, make sure you bring the right shoes. That's going to be important. If you're going to have to walk a long way, you want to make sure you have shoes that are up for the journey. And then what personal things do you take? We all have things that mean the world to us, but can you take them with you? And how important are they really? I mean, sure, I've got stuff that means a lot to me, but would I miss it if I had it? If I didn't have it? Sure. But is it worth holding up everyone and losing my life over? No, I don't think so. When you hear about people leaving their homes and crossing borders, what's your reaction and why? That's a question an answer that's changed a lot over the years. In my case, all my great-grandparents, around that generation, all came to this country. So they were all immigrants. They all were. I mean, they came from a bunch of different places in Europe, from Finland and Hungary and England, and they came from all over. And they all came here looking for something different, something better. I'm not entirely sure why they all came. None of them really left a record as to why they did it. But it's important to think about why do people immigrate? Why do they do that? Why would you leave your home and leave everything you know to go somewhere else? Well, anymore for most people, the reason's usually out of fear. There's plenty of countries in the world that are not safe, where children are abducted, forced into, military, forced into doing horrible things, where people are, press ganged into all sorts of stuff. If you don't agree with the ruling authorities, you end up very dead. And that's the sad case. There's a lot of places in this world that there's no economic advantage at all. There's just nothing. And so people will take that chance to try to save their children, to try to save their families of fleeing somewhere else. I mean, the millions and millions of people in refugee camps right now around the world is staggering. It really is. And the whole reason for that is they've either been forced out or they fled ahead of some kind of gang or military that's trying to come after them. And in that case, what do you bring? What do you do? You have to make sure you have enough to get where you need to go, but you also have to carry everything with you, including your children. So what do? Fortunately, I've never had to make that decision. I've never been forced to be in that position. I'm lucky. But so many people have not been. So many people are forced to make that calculation. And what do you bring? What are the little mementos that you bring with you to remind you of home, to remind you of who you are? I think it's fascinating the number of New Testaments and psalters and rosaries that are tucked into pockets and brought a small piece of who someone is, and how sad that it gets taken from them. I'm not really sure what damage you could do to someone with a tiny copy of a New Testament in your pocket. But there we are. So think about why people would need to leave their homes, would need to leave where they are, why they have to do it. And what is it that we can do to help them? Either help them be able to stay in their homeland or be able to help them find a safe place. Not just for them, but for their families too. That's important. That's part of treating our neighbors as ourselves. We want to be in a safe place. We should want that for other people too. So I hope this has been a good discussion for you. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll get together again soon. See you later.